The scent gave her away. Marie knelt before the council in silver chains, their roars of abomination bouncing off stone walls. But it wasn't the death sentence that froze her blood. It was the wetness between her thighs, still slick with him, still burning with what they'd done 3 hours ago in the sacred cave. The head elder leaned forward, nostrils flaring. Strip her. Let the entire pack see the Alpha King's seed dripping down in Omega's legs. Let them see exactly what kind of whore dared corrupt our bloodline. 2 guards reached for her ceremonial robes. Then every torch in the chamber exploded into blinding white light. And a voice, ancient female, not quite mortal, spoke a single word that made the elder stumble backward. Chosen. 72 hours earlier. Marie Morgan had learned long ago that survival meant invisibility. In the hierarchy of the Crescent Moon Pact territories, Omega wolves like her existed in the shadows. Useful for menial labor, forgettable in every other way. She'd perfected the art of being overlooked, moving through the forests of Montana like smoke, hunting alone, speaking rarely, wanting nothing from the pack politics that consumed so many others. Her gift made it easier. While other wolves left scent trails and sound signatures, Marie could suppress both, slipping through the wilderness as if she were made of mist rather than flesh and bone. It was a talent she'd been born with, one that had saved her life more times than she could count. She'd never wanted to be a hero, never aspired to anything beyond her next meal and her next safe den. But fate, as she would learn, didn't care what you wanted. The winter night started like any other. Marie tracked an elk through the deep pines, her wolf form lean and midnight black against the snow. The moon hung fat and silver overhead, illuminating her path through the Bitterroot Range. She was miles from pack territory, in the neutral zones where lone wolves could hunt without permission or consequence. That's when the wind shifted. Silver. The scent hit her like a physical blow, acrid and wrong in a way that made her wolf recoil instinctively. Silver was poison to their kind. It burned through flesh like acid, prevented healing, and in sufficient quantities could kill even the strongest alpha. No wolf carried silver into these forests. No wolf except. Marie's curiosity overrode her survival instinct. She followed the scent to a clearing where firelight flickered between the trees. 12 wolves surrounded the flames, but these weren't pack wolves. They were rogues. She could tell by their mismatched scents, the lack of cohesive hierarchy, the mercenary coldness in their movements. And they were armed for war. Silver-tipped arrows. Nets woven with silver wire. And most disturbing of all, a collar designed to suppress a wolf's ability to shift, its surface etched with symbols Marie recognized from old pack lore. Suppression magic. Forbidden for 200 years. The coordinates are confirmed, one of the rogues said, his voice rough as gravel. The Alpha King runs the hunt of Ascension tomorrow night. Alone. Unarmed. Tradition demands it. Another rogue laughed, the sound devoid of humor. Stupid tradition. Makes our job easy. 12 silver arrows should do it, the first continued. But we use the net if he shifts. The collar if we need to keep him alive long enough for the council members to confirm the kill. Marie's blood turned to ice. The Alpha King. Peter here. She knew the name like every wolf knew it, whispered with equal parts reverence and terror. The Crescent Moon Pack had ruled the Northern Territories for 3 centuries, and Peter was the most formidable alpha they'd ever produced. She'd never seen him herself, but the stories were legend. Golden eyes that could paralyze a wolf with a glance. Strength that had ended challenges before they truly began. A wolf so dominant that even his own council feared him. And someone on that council wanted him dead. Marie should have run. This wasn't her pack. Wasn't her problem. She was nobody, an Omega wolf whose entire existence depended on not getting involved in the conflicts of the powerful. But something in her chest twisted at the thought of assassination disguised as sacred ritual. Whatever Peter here might be, he deserved to die with honor, not butchered by hired killers while tradition left him defenseless. The decision formed before she could fully interrogate it. She would warn him. Just that. Warn him and disappear back into the shadows where she belonged. She had no idea that decision would change everything. Point of no return. Marie found Peter here in the Copper Valley Ravine 24 hours later, and immediately understood why the rogues had chosen this location for their ambush. The ravine was a natural kill box. Steep walls on 3 sides, limited escape routes, perfect high ground for archers. And Peter was already trapped. His wolf form was massive, easily twice the size of an average alpha, his fur so dark it seemed to absorb the moonlight. Those famous golden eyes blazed with fury as he faced the circle of rogues closing in around him. He'd caught their scent. She could tell by his coiled posture, the way his lips peeled back from fangs that could crush bone. But there were too many, and they had the advantage. The first silver arrow caught him in the shoulder, and Peter's roar of agony shook snow from the surrounding pines. The scent of burning flesh filled the air as the cursed metal seared through muscle. Marie didn't think, didn't plan, didn't calculate the cost. She simply moved. Her first kill was silent, jaws around a rogue's throat before he could cry out, his body crumpling into the snow. The second rogue died the same way, confusion frozen on his face as Marie materialized from nowhere. "We're under attack," someone shouted, and chaos erupted. Marie became a phantom of death, using her gift to strike from impossible angles. She wasn't a trained fighter. Every instinct told her to flee, but adrenaline and desperation made her savage. 3 rogues fell before they understood what was happening. Then a silver net caught her across the back. Welcome back to the channel, my dear friends. Before we dive deeper into the story, kindly click subscribe. Like this video and tell me in the comments which country you are watching from. Your support helps me bring you more thrilling stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now let's get into the story. The agony was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. The metal burned through fur and flesh, and Marie's wolf form collapsed, her scream echoing off the ravine walls. A massive rogue loomed above her, axe raised for the killing blow. Peter's jaws closed around the rogue's spine with a sickening crunch. Despite the arrow still buried in his shoulder, the Alpha King fought with terrifying precision, protecting the mysterious she-wolf who had saved him. Together, Marie providing distraction, Peter delivering lethal force, they carved through the remaining assassins. When the last body fell, silence reclaimed the ravine. Peter shifted first, his human form tall and powerfully built, skin marked with scars that told stories of countless battles. He yanked the silver arrow from his shoulder without flinching, golden eyes fixed on Marie as she too returned to human form, gasping and bleeding from the silver burns across her back. "You're not from my pack," he said, his voice like gravel and thunder. "Why did you help me?" Marie met his gaze, refusing to show the pain coursing through her. "Because ambush is for cowards. If someone's going to kill a king, they should have the courage to face him." Something flickered in Peter's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it had reached his eyes. "What's your name, Phantom?" "Marie. Marie Morgan." He moved closer, and Marie's breath caught. The Alpha King knelt before her, gently examining her wounds with hands that were surprisingly careful despite their obvious strength. The silver had burned deep, leaving angry red welts that wouldn't heal properly without treatment. "These need to be cleaned," Peter said quietly. "Come with me." "I don't." "That wasn't a request, Marie Morgan." His golden eyes held hers. "You saved my life. That creates a debt, and I always pay my debts." Marie wanted to argue, wanted to disappear back into the shadows where she was safe. But her body was failing, the silver poison spreading through her system, and the look in Peter's eyes promised both danger and something else she couldn't quite name. She nodded. Peter lifted her with impossible gentleness, cradling her against his chest as he carried her from the ravine. Marie should have been terrified. She was alone with the most dangerous wolf in the territories, wounded and vulnerable. Instead, she felt inexplicably safe. "Where are we going?" she whispered. "Somewhere no one else knows about," Peter replied. "Somewhere safe." The journey took an hour, Peter moving through the forest with Marie in his arms, his pace steady despite his own injuries. They finally arrived at a cave hidden behind a waterfall, its entrance concealed by ancient wards that Marie could feel prickling against her skin like static electricity. Inside, the cave opened into something extraordinary. Luminescent crystals grew from the walls, casting soft blue light across pools of crystal-clear water. The air itself seemed alive with old magic, the kind that predated pack hierarchies and territorial disputes. "This is a sacred place," Peter explained, setting Marie down gently beside one of the pools. "Known only to the Alpha bloodline. The waters here have healing properties. They'll draw out the silver poison." He was right. As soon as Peter lowered Marie into the warm water, she felt the burning begin to ease. The ancient magic worked through her system, pulling the toxins from her wounds, accelerating her natural healing. Peter joined her in the pool, washing the blood from his own injuries. In the soft crystal light, Marie could see the full extent of his scars, some recent, others decades old. Each one a story of survival, of battles won against impossible odds. Who were they? Marie asked. The rogues. Peter's jaw tightened. Mercenaries. Hired by someone on my own council. You know who? I have suspicions. His golden eyes met hers. 3 council members have been pushing for changes in pack law. They want to expand our territories, start conflicts with neighboring packs. I've refused. This was their answer. Will you kill them? I need proof first. But yes. There was no hesitation in his voice, no remorse. Betrayal of this magnitude cannot go unpunished. They sat in silence for a while, the magic-infused water working its healing through both of them. Marie found herself studying Peter's face, the hard angles, the permanent wariness in his eyes, the way he held himself even in this safe place, as if expecting attack at any moment. Why are you really alone? She asked softly. The stories say you choose isolation. But that's not the whole truth, is it? Peter's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his features before he locked it down. The throne demands it. An alpha king cannot show weakness, cannot have attachments that enemies can exploit. Isolation isn't a choice, it's survival. That sounds like a lonely existence. It is. The admission seemed to surprise him. But it's kept me alive for 43 years. Kept my pack strong. Marie wanted to say something comforting, but the words died in her throat as Peter reached out, his fingers gentle as they traced the fading silver burns on her shoulder. His touch sent electricity racing through her system, and Marie's breath hitched. You were incredibly brave, Peter said, his voice dropping to something almost reverent. And incredibly foolish. You could have died. So could you. I'm an alpha king. Dying in battle is expected. He paused, searching for words. You're nobody's soldier. Why risk yourself? Marie considered the question, surprised by her own answer. Because some things are worth the risk. Because cowardice offends me. Because, she met his eyes. I don't know. I just knew I had to. Something changed in the air between them. A charge like lightning building before a storm. Peter's hand moved from her shoulder to her face, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so dangerous. You saved me, he whispered. Do you understand what that means? Before Marie could answer, the mating bond struck them both like lightning. It wasn't subtle, wasn't gentle. It was absolute recognition, the kind that existed between true mates, a bond so rare that most wolves lived entire lifetimes without experiencing it. Marie felt it slam into her chest, rewriting something fundamental in her DNA, creating a connection to Peter that was undeniable and terrifying and perfect all at once. Peter's eyes widened, his pupils dilating as the bond hit him with equal force. No, he breathed. This isn't possible. But it was happening. The mating bond pulsed between them, growing stronger with each passing second, pulling them together with magnetic inevitability. Marie, Peter's voice was strained. If we do this, there's no going back. The laws are absolute. An alpha king cannot mate outside approved bloodlines. You're an omega. This would be forbidden, Marie finished. The word hung between them, heavy with consequence. They should have stopped. Should have walked away, allowed the bond to fade unfulfilled, protected themselves from the disaster this union would bring. Instead, Peter pulled her closer, his lips finding hers with desperate hunger. The kiss shattered any remaining hesitation. Marie responded with equal fervor, her hands tangling in Peter's hair as 30 years of loneliness and isolation combusted into pure need. The mating bond sang between them, urging them forward, erasing every law and tradition that said this was impossible. Peter's hands explored her body with reverent intensity, as if memorizing every curve, every scar, every imperfection that made her real. Marie mirrored his actions, tracing the hard muscles of his chest, the ridges of old battle wounds, the tension that slowly melted under her touch. Are you sure? Peter whispered against her lips, giving her one final chance to retreat. Marie's answer was to pull him deeper into the pool, her legs wrapping around his waist. I've never been more sure of anything. What happened next would become the whispered scandal of every pack from the northern territories to the southern coasts. The Alpha King and the Nobody Omega, coming together in a union that defied every law of their kind. The mating bond completed itself in waves of pleasure, so intense it bordered on pain, marking them as irrevocably bound. Afterward, they lay tangled together on the smooth stone beside the pool. Peter's arms wrapped around Marie as if she might disappear if he loosened his grip. We can't tell anyone, he said quietly. Not yet. I need to deal with the traitors on my council first. Need to strengthen my position before I can withstand the political storm this will cause. Marie nodded, even as dread pooled in her stomach. How long? A week. Maybe 2. Peter pressed a kiss to her forehead. Stay here. You'll be safe in this sanctuary until I can make arrangements. And then what? Then, Peter's golden eyes met hers, fierce and determined. Then I make you my queen, and anyone who objects can challenge me for the throne. Marie wanted to believe it could be that simple. But even in the afterglow of their union, she could feel the weight of the laws they'd broken, the consequences building like storm clouds on the horizon. She just didn't know how terrible those consequences would be. Peter left the sanctuary at dawn, his wolf form disappearing into the forest with one last lingering look at Marie. She watched him go, the mating bond stretching between them like a living thread, and tried to ignore the cold dread settling in her bones. The sanctuary felt different without him. Larger, emptier. The luminescent crystals that had seemed magical now cast shadows that moved with sinister intention. Marie told herself she was being paranoid, that Peter would return in a few days with a solution, that somehow this impossible situation would resolve itself. She believed that for exactly 48 hours. On the 3rd morning, Marie woke to the sound of footsteps outside the cave. Multiple sets, moving with military precision. Her wolf senses screamed danger even before the first figure appeared at the entrance. A female alpha with silver-streaked hair and eyes like chips of ice. Marie Morgan, the woman said, her voice carrying the authority of centuries. By order of the Council of Elders, you are commanded to appear before us. Immediately, Marie's heart stopped. How did you find this place? The woman's smile was cold. Did you really think the Alpha King's sanctuary was truly secret? We've known about it for generations. We simply allowed the Alphas to believe otherwise. She gestured, and 4 massive wolves materialized from the shadows. Come peacefully, or we drag you. Your choice. There was no choice. Marie shifted to human form, accepting the rough cloak they threw at her, and allowed herself to be escorted from the sanctuary. The mating bond pulsed with alarm, and somewhere in the forest, she knew Peter felt her distress. But he was too far away to help. The journey to the council chambers took 6 hours. They arrived at dusk, the ancient stone building looming against the darkening sky like a judge's gavel. Marie's escorts marched her through corridors lined with carved wolves, the history of the Crescent Moon Pack rendered in stone and blood. The chamber itself was circular, with 12 chairs arranged in a semicircle. 11 were occupied by the oldest, most powerful wolves in the territories. The 12th, the Alpha King's chair, sat empty. Marie was forced to her knees in the center of the room, silver chains binding her wrists. The metal burned, but she refused to show pain. Do you know why you're here? The head elder asked. He was ancient, his human form wizened, but his eyes sharp as broken glass. Marie lifted her chin. No. Liar. The word cracked like a whip. We can smell him on you. The Alpha King's scent, mingled with yours in a way that leaves no doubt what occurred. He leaned forward. You mated with him. An Omega Wolf and an Alpha King. Do you comprehend the magnitude of your crime? The other council members erupted in outrage, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of condemnation. Abomination. She's corrupted the bloodline. Death sentence. Both of them. Marie's mind raced. How did they know? Peter had been so careful, and the mating had occurred in a location they believed was secret. Unless, the realization hit her like a physical blow. The rogues. The assassination attempt. It had never been about killing Peter. It had been about forcing him into a situation where he'd need help, where he'd be vulnerable, where he might do something reckless. They'd been manipulated from the beginning. You set us up, Marie said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The assassination attempt was staged. You wanted Peter wounded and desperate. You wanted him to break the laws. The head elder's expression confirmed her suspicion. Not entirely staged. We hired the rogues, yes, but with full expectation they might actually succeed in killing him. Either outcome served our purposes. But why? Because Peter here has ruled for too long with too much power and too little accountability. The elder's ancient face twisted with barely contained rage. He refuses to expand our territories. Refuses to take a mate from the approved bloodlines. Refuses to produce an heir who would be easier to control. He's made himself untouchable through strength and fear, but even kings have weaknesses. He gestured at Marie. You are his weakness. And now we have all the leverage we need. The chamber doors burst open. Peter strode in, still in human form, his golden eyes blazing with fury. He'd clearly run hard to get here. His clothes were torn, dirt and blood streaking his skin. The mating bond had pulled him back from whatever council business he'd been attending, drawn by Marie's distress. "Release her," Peter commanded, his alpha voice reverberating through the stone chamber. "Now!" "No." The head elder stood, meeting Peter's gaze without flinching. "She has committed a crime against pack law." "As have you." "I committed no crime. The mating bond chose her. I merely answered its call. The laws are clear. An alpha king may only mate within approved bloodlines. Your father followed this law. His father before him. Every alpha king for 3 centuries has understood that personal desires are secondary to pack stability." Peter's hands clenched into fists. "The laws are antiquated, written by wolves who feared that power concentrated in one bloodline would lead to tyranny. But I've proven. You've proven nothing except that you're as fallible as any other wolf." The elder's voice was ice. "You let a pretty face and a heroic gesture cloud your judgment. You've endangered the entire pack hierarchy for an omega who means nothing." The words hit Marie like silver arrows. She wanted to protest, to defend herself, but what could she say? She was nobody. An omega wolf with no rank, no family, no political value. The truth of her worthlessness echoed in the council's contemptuous stares. Peter stepped forward, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "Choose your next words carefully, elder. Because they may be your last. Is that a threat against the council? It's a promise. Touch her, and I'll burn this entire structure to the ground with all of you inside it." The chamber erupted in chaos again. Council members shouted over each other, some calling for Peter's immediate removal, others trying to restore order. Through it all, Marie watched Peter, saw the terrible calculation happening behind his eyes. He was trying to find a way to save her. But there wasn't one. Not without triggering a civil war that would tear the pack apart. The head elder raised his hand and silence fell. "There is a solution," he said quietly. "One that preserves both the law and your position as Alpha King." Peter's eyes narrowed. "What solution?" "Reject the mating bond. Publicly. Renounce Marie Morgan as your mate. Declare the union a moment of temporary madness brought on by battle fever and blood loss. The council will show mercy. Will exile the girl rather than execute her. She lives. You maintain the throne. Pack law remains intact." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Marie felt the mating bond constrict painfully in her chest. Rejection was possible, rare but possible. If Peter used his alpha voice to formally renounce their bond, it would sever the connection, leaving them both alive but forever marked by the phantom pain of what they'd lost. It was the smart choice. The only choice that didn't end in death or civil war. Peter looked at Marie, and in his golden eyes she saw his decision forming. Saw him weighing her life against his throne, his duty against his desire. The math was simple. She was nobody. He was everything. "Peter," Marie said softly. "It's okay. Do it." "No." The single word carried absolute finality. The head elder blinked. "What?" "No," Peter repeated. "I will not reject her. I will not renounce our bond. And if the council believes they can force me to choose between my mate and my throne," he smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Marie had ever seen. "Then prepare to find out why I've remained Alpha King for 43 years. The threat was unmistakable. Peter was choosing war. "You're insane," the elder breathed. "You'll destroy everything your bloodline built for 3 centuries. For her?" "For her," Peter confirmed. His eyes never left Marie's face. "Because the mating bond is sacred. Because she saved my life when she had every reason to let me die. Because in 3 centuries, my bloodline has produced powerful alphas, but not one of them has ever found their true mate." He took a step toward the council. "So yes, elder. For her. And anyone who wants to challenge that decision can face me in the traditional way." It was a formal challenge. Single combat. The only way to legally remove an Alpha King. The council members exchanged glances, and Marie saw fear flicker across several faces. Peter was the most dangerous fighter in pack history. Challenging him was suicide. But the head elder was old enough to remember a time before Peter's reign. Old enough to have trained warriors who might, just might, stand a chance. "Very well," the elder said. "We accept your challenge. But not against me." He gestured, and a side door opened. Against him. The wolf who entered made Marie's blood freeze. He was massive, easily matching Peter in size, his human form rippling with barely contained violence. Scars covered his arms and chest, the marks of a lifetime spent in combat. His eyes were the flat black of a predator who'd killed so many times that death had become routine. "This is Garrett Kane," the head elder announced. "Champion of the Western Territories. Undefeated in 47 challenges. He's agreed to serve as the council's representative in this matter." Peter's expression didn't change, but Marie felt the mating bond pulse with something that might have been concern. This wasn't some inexperienced challenger. This was a professional killer. "The challenge will take place at dawn tomorrow," the elder continued. "In the traditional arena. To the death. If you win, Peter, the council will acknowledge Marie as your mate and grant her full queen status. If Garrett wins," he smiled, "well, the throne will need a new occupant, and Marie will be executed for her crimes. Those are the terms." "Agreed," Peter said without hesitation. "No." Marie lunged against her chains, the silver burning deep into her wrists. "Peter, don't do this. Just reject the bond. I'm not worth." Peter crossed the chamber in 3 strides and cupped her face in his hands. "You're worth everything," he said softly. "And I'd rather die fighting for you than live 100 years without you." The mating bond sang between them, fierce and unbreakable. The head elder made a disgusted sound. "How touching. Take her to the holding cells. The Alpha King needs his rest before tomorrow's entertainment." Guards dragged Marie from the chamber, her last view of Peter standing alone before the council, his expression carved from stone and fury. The holding cells. They threw Marie into a cell deep beneath the council chambers, the door slamming shut with terrible finality. The space was small and dark, the walls carved from solid rock that muffled sound and suppressed wolf senses. Silver bars reinforced the door, ensuring she couldn't shift and break free. She was alone with her thoughts, and they were brutal. This was her fault. If she'd just walked away that night in the forest, if she'd let the assassination attempt play out without interference, none of this would be happening. Peter would either be dead, which was the plan anyway, or would have survived and never known she existed. Instead, she damned them both. The mating bond pulsed with Peter's emotions, determination, fury, and underneath it all, fear. Not for himself, but for her. He was terrified of failing, of leaving her to face execution alone. Marie pressed her hand against her chest, trying to send comfort back through the bond. But what comfort could she offer? Tomorrow, Peter would fight a trained killer in single combat. If he lost, she died. If he won, they'd still face a council that would spend every moment trying to find new ways to destroy them. There was no good outcome here. Hours passed. Marie dozed fitfully, her dreams filled with blood and golden eyes and the sound of bones breaking. She woke to footsteps approaching her cell, and for a moment hoped it was Peter, coming to tell her he'd found another solution. Instead, a young Omega wolf she didn't recognize slipped through the shadows, a key in his hand. "Quickly," he whispered, unlocking the cell door. "We don't have much time." Marie stared at him, confused. "Who are you?" "Someone who thinks the council is wrong." He pulled the door open, wincing as the hinges creaked. "There are others like me, wolves who believe Peter is right, that the old laws should change. We can get you out of the territory before dawn. You'll be safe. And Peter?" The young wolf's expression was sympathetic. "He fights either way. But if you're gone, if there's nothing to fight for, maybe he'll accept the council's mercy. Maybe he'll survive." It was a lifeline, an escape. Marie could disappear into the wilderness, and Peter could claim she'd seduced him, manipulated him, that without her influence he'd return to his senses. He'd hate himself. The rejection would destroy something fundamental in him. But he'd live. He'd keep his throne. Marie thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "No." The young wolf blinked. "What?" "I'm not running." Marie stood, brushing dust from her clothes. "Lock the cell. Tell whoever sent you that I appreciate the offer, but I won't let Peter fight this battle alone. You're insane. If he loses, then we both die. Together." Marie met the young wolf's eyes. "That's what mates do." He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "I'll tell them you refused." He hesitated. "For what it's worth, I hope he wins. I hope you both survive this." "So do I," Marie whispered. After he left, she stood in her unlocked cell and tried to quiet her racing heart. Dawn was coming, and with it, a battle that would determine everything. Somewhere in the complex above, Peter was preparing to fight for their impossible future. Marie closed her eyes and sent every ounce of strength she possessed through the mating bond, hoping it would be enough. Dawn. They came for her as the first light touched the horizon. Different guards this time, their expressions carefully neutral as they escorted her from the cells. No chains this time. The council wanted her to watch the combat unimpeded, wanted her to witness Peter's potential death with perfect clarity. The arena was ancient, carved from natural rock amphitheater style, with raised seating for spectators and a flat circle of packed earth at the center. Hundreds of wolves had gathered. This was the first Alpha King challenge in over 4 decades, and everyone wanted to witness history. Marie was placed in a designated section near the front, flanked by guards to ensure she didn't interfere. Around her, wolves whispered and pointed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. The head elder stood at the center of the arena, his voice amplified by ancient acoustics. We gather at dawn to witness combat in the traditional way. Peter here, Alpha King of the Crescent Moon Pack, has chosen to defend his right to mate outside approved bloodlines. The council has appointed Garrett Kane as our champion. This combat is to the death. There will be no mercy, no surrender. Are the combatants ready? From the east entrance, Peter entered the arena. He wore simple clothes, dark pants, no shirt, feet bare against the earth. In the morning light, every scar on his body was visible. A roadmap of violence survived. His golden eyes swept the crowd before landing on Marie, and the mating bond flared with such intensity it stole her breath. From the west entrance, Garrett Kane emerged. He was dressed identically, his scarred body a mirror of Peter's. But where Peter moved with controlled grace, Garrett radiated barely leashed savagery. This was a wolf who lived for violence, who'd spent his entire life perfecting the art of killing. The two alphas faced each other across the arena, and the tension was thick enough to choke on. Begin, the elder commanded. Neither wolf shifted immediately. Instead, they circled each other in human form, measuring distance, looking for openings. The crowd fell silent, holding their collective breath. Garrett struck first, a blur of movement that would have been invisible to human eyes. His fist drove toward Peter's face with bone-crushing force. Peter deflected, countering with a strike to Garrett's ribs that made an audible crack. Garrett grinned, blood already staining his teeth, and the real fight began. They moved too fast for Marie to track every blow, their combat a deadly dance of strikes and counters. Garrett fought with pure aggression, overwhelming force designed to batter through defenses. Peter fought with precision, each movement calculated to inflict maximum damage while exposing minimal vulnerability. Blood spattered the arena floor. Garrett's. Peter's. Impossible to distinguish. Then Garrett shifted mid-strike, his human form exploding into his massive wolf, jaws snapping for Peter's throat. Peter shifted a heartbeat later, meeting the attack with equal savagery. The two wolves collided with a sound like thunder, teeth and claws finding flesh, tearing, rending, each trying to find the killing blow. Marie's hands clenched so hard her nails drew blood from her palms. Through the mating bond, she felt every impact Peter took, every flash of pain, every moment his strength wavered. Garrett was younger, faster, and his fighting style was refined specifically for arena combat. He'd spent decades doing nothing but fighting challenges. Peter was fighting for love, for his mate, for a future he'd never dared imagine until 3 days ago. The question was, which motivation was stronger? Garrett's jaws closed around Peter's shoulder, and the Alpha King's howl of pain echoed off the arena walls. He thrashed, trying to break free, but Garrett's grip was iron, his teeth grinding deeper, seeking the artery that would end the fight. Marie screamed, the sound tearing from her throat without conscious thought. The mating bond was on fire, Peter's pain so intense she could barely breathe. He was losing, going to die, and there was nothing she could do except watch. Then Peter did something unexpected. Instead of trying to escape Garrett's grip, he drove forward, using his greater mass to slam Garrett into the arena wall. Once. Twice. The third impact finally broke Garrett's hold, and Peter spun away, blood streaming from the mangled shoulder. They faced each other again, both wolves heaving, both wounded, both refusing to yield. What happened next would be debated for years. Some claimed Peter's golden eyes flashed with ancient power, the alpha dominance of his bloodline manifesting in visible form. Others insisted Garrett simply made a tactical error, overconfident in his advantage. Marie knew the truth. She felt it through the mating bond. Peter stopped fighting for himself and started fighting for her. The shift was subtle but absolute. Every strike became more precise, more devastating. Peter accepted injuries that would have made other wolves retreat, using the pain to fuel his rage. He fought like a wolf with nothing left to lose and everything worth dying for. Garrett must have sensed the change, because his attacks grew desperate, wild. He was no longer fighting to win, he was fighting to survive. It wasn't enough. Peter's jaws found Garrett's throat and locked down with the force of 3 centuries of alpha dominance. Garrett thrashed, clawing at Peter's sides, opening wounds that would have killed a lesser wolf. Peter held on. The thrashing slowed, weakened, finally stopped. Garrett Kane's body went limp, and Peter released him, the champion's corpse hitting the arena floor with terrible finality. The arena erupted in chaos, some wolves cheering, others crying out in protest. Through it all, Peter stood over his fallen opponent, blood dripping from dozens of wounds, his sides heaving with exhaustion. Then his golden eyes found Marie, and despite everything, he smiled. The head elder's voice cut through the noise. The challenge is complete. Peter here remains Alpha King. And by the terms of combat, his ancient face twisted with barely suppressed fury. Marie Morgan is recognized as his mate and queen. The words should have brought relief. Victory. Instead, Marie felt only cold dread, because she'd seen the expression on the elder's face. This wasn't over. The council had lost this battle, but the war was just beginning. And now they had a queen to destroy. The healers descended on Peter the moment the elder declared the combat complete, their hands glowing with the faint blue light of ancient healing magic. But Peter shoved them away, his wolf form limping directly toward Marie with single-minded determination. He shifted back to human just as he reached her, collapsing to his knees, and pulled her into his arms with desperate intensity. The mating bond sang with relief so profound it brought tears to Marie's eyes. "I thought I'd lost you," Peter whispered against her hair, his voice raw. "When Garrett had me pinned, I felt you screaming through the bond and I thought." "I'm here," Marie interrupted, her hands gentle as she examined his wounds. They were already healing, his alpha constitution knitting torn flesh back together, but the damage was extensive. "You need the healers, Peter. You're still bleeding." "I don't care." His golden eyes held hers with an intensity that made breathing difficult. "I have you. That's all that matters." Around them, the crowd was dispersing, wolves murmuring among themselves about what they'd witnessed. Some looked odd, others disgusted, most simply confused, uncertain how to process an alpha king who'd nearly died defending an Omega's honor. The head elder approached, 2 council members flanking him like an honor guard. His expression was carefully neutral, but Marie could see the calculation happening behind his ancient eyes. "The combat has been decided," he announced, his voice carrying enough to reach the remaining spectators. "Marie Morgan is queen by right of challenge. The council acknowledges this." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "However, the transition must be formalized. There are ceremonies to complete, oaths to be sworn, bloodline records to update. This will take time." Peter's arms tightened around Marie. "How much time?" 3 days. Minimum. The elder's smile was cold. "Pack law is specific about the Queen's ascension ritual. Every step must be followed precisely, or the legitimacy can be challenged. I'm sure you want everything to be proper." It was a threat wrapped in bureaucracy. 3 days for the council to maneuver, to find loopholes, to plot their next move. But refusing would give them grounds to claim the mating was still unlawful. "Fine," Peter said through gritted teeth. 3 days. But Marie stays with me. In my quarters. Under my protection. "Of course." The elder gestured graciously, as if he'd never imprisoned Marie in a cell or orchestrated her potential execution. "She is your mate, after all. The guards will escort you both to the Alpha's residence." The escort was 10 wolves strong, officially an honor guard, but Marie recognized them for what they really were. Watchers. Enforcers. A reminder that despite Peter's victory, the council still held significant power. The journey to Peter's residence took 20 minutes through winding forest paths. The building itself was impressive, a massive log structure built into the mountainside, with windows that overlooked the entire territory. Smoke curled from multiple chimneys, and ancient wards shimmered in the air like heat haze. "This is your home?" Marie asked as they crossed the threshold. "Our home now," Peter corrected. His voice was firm despite his obvious exhaustion. "Everything I have is yours, Marie. My throne, my territory, my life." The interior was surprisingly sparse. Marie had expected opulence, gold fixtures, expensive furnishings, the trappings of absolute power. Instead, she found functional furniture, weapons mounted on walls, and shelves filled with books and strategic maps. This was the home of a warrior, not a politician. Peter dismissed the guards with a curt command, then sagged against the doorframe, his wounds finally catching up with him. Marie moved instantly, supporting his weight, guiding him toward what looked like a bedroom. "I'm fine," Peter protested weakly. "You're bleeding through your regeneration," Marie countered. "That means your body is exhausted. You need rest, food, and actual medical attention." She got him onto the bed, a massive thing that could easily accommodate his wolf form, and finally allowed the healers to enter. They worked in silence, applying salves that accelerated healing and binding the worst wounds with enchanted bandages. Through it all, Peter's eyes never left Marie's face, the mating bond pulsing between them like a living heartbeat. When the healers finally left, Marie sat on the edge of the bed and took Peter's hand. "You almost died for me today. I'd do it again. No hesitation. No doubt." "Why?" The question burst from her before she could stop it. "I'm nobody, Peter. An Omega wolf with no family, no rank, no political value. You're the Alpha King. You could have any wolf in the territories as your mate. Why fight so hard for me?" Peter was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Do you know what it's like," he finally said, "to live for 43 years convinced you'll never find your true mate? To watch other wolves bond and know that gift is denied to you because of your bloodline, your position, your duty." His golden eyes met hers. "I'd accepted being alone, Marie. Convinced myself it was noble sacrifice, that isolation was the price of leadership." He pulled her closer until their foreheads touched. "Then you appeared in that forest like a phantom, risking your life for a king you'd never met, expecting nothing in return. And for the first time in decades, I felt something other than duty. I felt hope." His voice dropped to a whisper. "The mating bond just confirmed what I already knew, that you're worth any fight, any sacrifice, any price the council demands." Marie kissed him then, pouring every emotion she couldn't articulate into the contact. Peter responded with equal fervor despite his injuries, his hands tangling in her hair, the mating bond flaring bright enough to hurt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marie rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat gradually slow. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we navigate the next 3 days without the council finding a way to nullify the combat result." Peter's arms tightened around her. "They'll look for technicalities, loopholes, anything to claim the challenge wasn't legitimate. And if they can't find legal grounds," he paused, "they'll manufacture other problems." "Like what?" "Accidents. Scandals. Evidence of unworthiness." His jaw clenched. "They'll try to prove you're unfit to be queen, that our mating was based on deception or manipulation. They'll dig into your past, interview anyone who's ever known you, looking for ammunition." Marie's stomach twisted. Her past was sparse, an Omega orphan raised in pack orphanages, bounced between territories until she was old enough to survive alone. There were no dark secrets to uncover, but there was also nothing impressive, nothing that would justify an Alpha King's devotion. "There's nothing to find," she said. "I've lived a completely unremarkable life." "That won't stop them from trying." Peter shifted carefully, making room for Marie to fully lie beside him. "But I have 3 days to prepare our defense. 3 days to consolidate support among the wolves who witnessed today's combat. 3 days to remind the council why challenging me is a very poor idea." There was steel in his voice, the Alpha King reasserting himself now that his mate was safe. Marie felt a flutter of hope. Maybe they could survive this. Maybe. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Peter growled low in his throat. "I said no disturbances." "Apologies, Alpha King." A female voice, young and uncertain. "But there's someone here who insists on speaking with Queen Marie. Says it's urgent." Marie and Peter exchanged glances. "Who?" Peter called out. A pause. Then, "She says her name is Vivian Cross. She's from the Shadow Ridge territory." Marie's blood froze. Shadow Ridge. Her original territory, the place she'd fled 8 years ago to escape pack politics and territorial disputes. She'd never been important enough there to make enemies, had left quietly and never looked back. So why would someone from Shadow Ridge appear now, demanding an audience? "It's a trap," Peter said immediately. "The council sent her to create some kind of incident." Maybe, but Marie's curiosity was stronger than her caution. Or maybe she has information we need. Either way, we won't know unless we talk to her. Peter looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. Fine, but I'm present for the conversation, and my guards stay within shouting distance. Agreed. They made themselves presentable, Marie borrowing clean clothes from Peter's wardrobe, Peter forcing himself upright despite his healing wounds, and moved to the residence's main room. Peter sat in a high-backed chair that served as an informal throne, Marie standing beside him in a clear display of united front. Send her in, Peter commanded. The woman who entered was striking, tall and lean, with silver blonde hair pulled into a severe braid and eyes the color of amber. She moved with the controlled grace of a trained warrior, and Marie immediately recognized the scars on her exposed forearms. This was a wolf who'd seen serious combat. Vivian dropped into a formal bow, head lowered in submission. Alpha King. Queen Marie. Thank you for seeing me. You have 5 minutes, Peter said coldly. Speak. Vivian straightened, her amber eyes fixing on Marie. I come from Shadow Ridge with information about a threat to the Queen's life. The Council has hired assassins, not rogues this time, but professional killers from the Shadow Syndicate. They're being paid to eliminate Marie before the Ascension ceremony can be completed. The Shadow Syndicate. Even Marie had heard of them. A network of wolves who'd abandoned pack law entirely, operating as mercenaries and assassins for whoever could afford their services. They were expensive, effective, and absolutely ruthless. How do you know this? Peter demanded. Because they approached me first. Vivian's expression was grim. I'm a Shadow Ridge enforcer. My specialty is tracking and elimination. The Council's representative contacted me 2 days ago, offered me a substantial sum to kill Marie and make it look like an accident. Marie's heart hammered against her ribs. What did you tell them? That I'd consider their offer. Vivian's eyes softened slightly. I needed time to investigate whether their claims about you were true, that you were a manipulative Omega who'd seduced the Alpha King for power. But after witnessing today's combat, after seeing what Peter was willing to risk for you, she shook her head. Whatever you are, you're not a con artist. And I don't kill innocent wolves for politics. Peter leaned forward, his alpha presence filling the room. Why tell us? You could have simply refused the contract. Because when I turned them down, they gave the contract to someone else. A wolf named Cain Devereux. Vivian's voice dropped. He's the best assassin the Syndicate has. And he's already in the territory. The name hit Marie like a physical blow. Cain Devereux, the Phantom Killer. Rumored to have over 200 confirmed eliminations. Each one so clean that most looked like natural deaths or accidents. If he was after her. When? Peter's voice was deadly calm. The attack will come during the Ascension ceremony preparation, Vivian said. Tomorrow night, there's a traditional ritual where the future queen must go to the sacred grove alone to receive blessings from the pack spirits. It's the perfect opportunity, isolated location, no guards allowed by tradition, built-in excuse for why she'd be vulnerable. Peter's hands clenched on the chair's armrests, his knuckles going white. We'll cancel the ritual. Postpone the ceremony. You can't. Vivian's expression was apologetic. Pack law requires every step of the ascension process. Skip even one ritual, and the council can claim the ceremony is invalid. They've set this up perfectly. Either Marie completes the ritual and likely dies, or she refuses and gives them legal grounds to nullify your mating. It was an impossible choice. Marie looked at Peter, saw the calculation happening behind his golden eyes, the terrible math of trying to protect her while maintaining his political position. There has to be another way, Marie said. There is. Vivian reached into her jacket and pulled out a small silver pendant on a leather cord. This is a protection charm, forged by the Shadow Ridge shamans. It won't stop a direct attack, but it will give you warning. The metal will heat up when someone with killing intent comes within 50 feet. It's not much, but it might buy you enough time to defend yourself. Marie accepted the pendant, feeling the faint tingle of magic against her skin. Why help me? You don't know me. And going against the council puts you at risk. Vivian smiled, but there was sadness in it. Because I had a mate once. Killed in a council-sanctioned challenge. All because our bond didn't fit their political plans. I watched him die protecting me, and I've spent 8 years wishing I'd been strong enough to fight beside him instead of watching from the sidelines. She met Marie's eyes. Don't let them do to you what they did to us. Fight. Survive. Make them regret ever trying to break you apart. The raw pain in Vivian's voice was unmistakable, and Marie felt an unexpected kinship with this stranger. Both of them were wolves caught in the machinery of pack politics, both fighting to protect something the council saw as inconvenient. "Thank you," Marie said quietly. "For the warning, for the charm, for the risk you're taking." Vivian nodded. "I should go. If the council discovers I warned you, they'll know I refused their contract." She turned toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. Cain Devereux doesn't work alone. He always has a spotter, someone who identifies the target and creates the opportunity. Watch everyone tomorrow night, even wolves you think you can trust. The syndicate is very good at infiltration." After she left, Marie and Peter sat in heavy silence. The mating bond pulsed between them, carrying Peter's fury and Marie's fear in equal measure. "I won't let you go to that grove alone," Peter said finally. "Tradition or not, I'm not risking your life. If I don't go, the council wins." Marie fingered the protection pendant, feeling its weight. "They'll claim the ceremony is invalid, challenge our mating, and we'll be right back where we started. Except next time, they won't bother with legal challenges. They'll just kill us both. So what do you suggest?" Marie took a deep breath, an idea forming. "What if I don't go alone?" "Not really. What if you're there, but hidden? Your stealth skills are legendary. If you can suppress your scent and presence, you could stay close enough to intervene if Cain attacks." Peter considered this, his tactical mind working through the angles. It would violate the spirit of the ritual, but not the letter of pack law. And if we're discovered, I could claim I was protecting my mate from a known threat. He nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it might work." "Then that's the plan." Marie tried to sound more confident than she felt. "I complete the ritual, you provide backup, and we catch an assassin in the act. Maybe we can even force him to reveal who hired him, get the evidence we need to remove the corrupt council members." Maybe, but Peter didn't sound convinced. Or maybe this is exactly what they want, to force us into a position where we're breaking tradition, giving them ammunition to use against us. He was right to be concerned. Every move they made felt like stepping deeper into a trap, the council always 3 steps ahead, anticipating their responses and preparing counters. But what choice did they have? Retreat meant losing everything. So they had to move forward, even knowing the path was mined with danger. Marie moved to sit in Peter's lap, careful of his healing wounds, and rested her head against his shoulder. The mating bond wrapped around them like a protective cocoon, and for a moment she could pretend they were just 2 wolves in love, not pieces in a deadly political game. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. If this goes wrong tomorrow night, if Cain succeeds, if I don't make it." She felt Peter tense but continued. "Promise me you'll survive, that you won't do something reckless trying to avenge me. The pack needs you, Peter. Your death won't bring me back. Don't." His voice was rough with emotion. "Don't ask me to promise I'll let you die unavenged. Because I won't. If they kill you, Marie, I'll burn this entire territory to ash. Every council member, every assassin, every wolf who stood by and allowed it to happen. There won't be mercy. There won't be restraint. There will only be destruction." The absolute conviction in his words should have frightened her. Instead, Marie felt strangely comforted. Whatever happened, she wouldn't die alone or unmourned. Peter would make the world remember her name, even if it was written in blood and fire. "Then I guess I'd better survive," she said, injecting false lightness into her voice. "Because I'd hate to be responsible for the destruction of a 300-year-old pack." Peter's laugh was shaky but genuine. "Yes, you'd better." They spent the rest of the evening planning, going over every detail of the ritual, identifying potential attack vectors, discussing defensive strategies. By the time exhaustion finally claimed them, they'd created as solid a plan as possible given the circumstances. Marie fell asleep in Peter's arms, the mating bond a warm presence in her chest, and tried not to think about the fact that this might be their last peaceful night together. Tomorrow would bring the sacred grove, the ascension ritual, and a professional assassin who'd never failed to complete a contract. Tomorrow would determine if their impossible love story got a happy ending, or became a cautionary tale whispered around pack fires for generations to come. The sacred grove. The next evening arrived with brutal swiftness. Marie spent the day in preparation. Ritual baths, ceremonial markings applied to her skin in ancient pack symbols, lessons from a reluctant elder on the proper words to speak when invoking the pack spirits. Through it all, she wore Vivian's protection pendant hidden beneath her clothes, its metal cool against her skin, waiting to heat up, waiting to warn her that death was approaching. Peter was barely contained violence, his alpha instincts screaming at him to lock Marie away somewhere safe and slaughter anyone who threatened her. But he maintained his composure, playing the role of supportive mate while secretly planning his infiltration of the grove. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold, Marie donned the ceremonial white robe required for the ritual. The fabric was thin, offering no protection against weapons or cold, designed to show the future queen's vulnerability before the pack spirits. It also made her an easier target, but no one mentioned that particular detail. "Remember," Peter said as they stood at the entrance to his residence, his hands cupping her face with desperate gentleness. "I'll be there. You won't see me, won't sense me, but I'll be watching. The moment anything goes wrong, I'll intervene." "I know." Marie covered his hands with hers. "I trust you." The mating bond flared between them, a silent promise that transcended words. 2 council escorts arrived to guide Marie to the sacred grove. They were older wolves, their expressions carefully neutral, giving no indication whether they knew about the assassination plot. Marie memorized their faces anyway, filing away every detail in case they turned out to be the spotter Vivian had warned about. The walk to the grove took 15 minutes, following a winding path through dense forest. Night was falling quickly, the shadows deepening between the trees, and Marie's enhanced wolf vision struggled against the growing darkness. The sacred grove itself was a circular clearing, with ancient stones arranged in a perfect circle around a central altar. Moonlight filtered through the canopy overhead, casting everything in silver and shadow. The air hummed with old magic, the kind that predated pack hierarchies and territorial disputes. "Wait here," one of the escorts instructed. "When the moon reaches its zenith, approach the altar and speak the invocation. The pack spirits will either accept you or reject you. If accepted, you'll receive their blessing. If rejected," he shrugged. "Well, that hasn't happened in 2 centuries, so it's probably not a concern." The escorts retreated, leaving Marie alone in the clearing. Or apparently alone. She knew Peter was out there somewhere, hidden in the forest, watching. But even through the mating bond, she couldn't sense his exact location. His stealth skills were that good. Marie moved to the center of the clearing, her bare feet silent on the moss-covered ground. The protection pendant rested cool against her sternum. No warning yet. No sign of imminent danger. She allowed herself to breathe. The moon climbed higher, and Marie mentally reviewed the invocation she'd been taught. Ancient words in the old tongue, asking the pack spirits to recognize her as worthy, to grant her the strength and wisdom to serve as queen. She was so focused on the ritual that she almost missed the pendant heating up. The change was subtle at first, a slight warmth against her skin. Then hotter. Hot enough to hurt. Someone with killing intent was within 50 feet. Marie's eyes scanned the forest, searching for movement, for any sign of the assassin. But the shadows were too deep, the darkness too complete. King could be anywhere. The pendant burned hotter, and Marie realized with cold horror that the heat was increasing, which meant the assassin was getting closer. 40 feet. 30. 20. Where was Peter? Why wasn't he intervening? Then Marie saw it, a flicker of movement in the trees to her left. Not human-shaped. Wolf-shaped. A massive dark form moving with predatory silence. For a moment, she thought it was Peter. Then the wind shifted, carrying the scent, and Marie's blood turned to ice. This wolf was female, and she smelled of death and silver and something else. Something that made Marie's wolf recoil in instinctive terror. Poison. The assassin wasn't planning to kill her with claws or teeth. She was planning to poison her, make it look like the pack spirits had rejected Marie, struck her down during the ritual for being unworthy. It was perfect, untraceable, and completely within the bounds of tradition. Marie's mind raced. She could run, but that would prove the council's claims that she was unworthy. She could fight, but against a professional assassin, her chances were minimal. Or she could complete the ritual, invoke the pack spirits, and hope that whatever ancient magic resided in this grove was powerful enough to protect her. It was insane, reckless, suicidal. Marie approached the altar. The female wolf emerged from the shadows, her form rippling as she shifted to human. The woman who stood there was unremarkable, medium height, plain features, the kind of face that blended into crowds. Perfect for an assassin. But her hands glowed with sickly green light, poison magic coating her fingers like lethal gloves. "I'd stop there if I were you," the woman said, her voice surprisingly pleasant. "Make this easy on yourself. One touch and you'll drift off peacefully. The pack spirits will be blamed. Everyone moves on. And if I refuse? Marie's hand moved subtly to the pendant, snapping the leather cord. If she was going to die, she'd at least try to take evidence with her, something Peter could use to prove the assassination attempt. The woman shrugged. Then I make it hurt. Your choice. Marie's fingers closed around the altar stone, and the moment she made contact, power slammed through her system like lightning. The sacred grove erupted in blinding silver light. Ancient magic, dormant for centuries, awakened in response to Marie's touch. The stones around the clearing ignited with the same silver glow, creating a barrier that neither the assassin nor her poison could cross. And in that moment, with power flowing through her veins and the pack spirit's attention focused entirely on her, Marie understood something fundamental. The ritual wasn't about proving worthiness to become queen. It was about awakening the dormant power that existed in every wolf's bloodline, buried so deep that most lived entire lives never knowing it was there. Marie had that power, had always had it. Her ability to move unseen, to suppress her scent and presence, wasn't just natural talent. It was magic, ancient, powerful, and now fully awakened. The assassin's eyes widened in shock. That's impossible. Omega wolves can't. She never finished the sentence. Peter exploded from the shadows in his massive wolf form, his jaws closing around the assassin's throat before she could complete her attack. The poison magic sputtered and died as consciousness left her, and Cain Devereux, because of course the spotter and the assassin had been one person, working alone to avoid witnesses, collapsed in a heap. The silver light faded, leaving Marie standing at the altar, power still humming through her system, Peter's wolf form between her and any further threats. From the forest, the council escorts emerged, their expressions shocked. Behind them, the head elder himself appeared, his ancient face twisted with fury and disbelief. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. Peter shifted to human form, his voice carrying absolute alpha authority. "The meaning is that you sent an assassin to kill my mate during a sacred ritual. And the pack spirits have not only accepted her, they've awakened power in her that marks her as worthy beyond any question." The elder's eyes darted between Marie, the unconscious assassin, and the still glowing altar stones. He was calculating, trying to find a way to spin this disaster into something he could control. But there was no controlling this. Marie had been chosen. Not by Peter. Not by tradition or politics or bloodline. By the pack spirits themselves. And that changed everything. The head elder's face cycled through emotions too quickly to track. Shock, fury, calculation, and finally, a mask of diplomatic neutrality. He was a survivor, someone who'd navigated pack politics for over a century, and Marie watched him recalibrate his strategy in real time. "Extraordinary," he said, his voice carefully measured. "The pack spirits have not awakened dormant power in a wolf for over 200 years. This is," he paused, as if searching for the right word, "unprecedented." "It's proof," Peter growled, still positioned protectively between Marie and the elder. "Undeniable proof that our mating is sanctioned by forces older than your laws, older than your council, older than the Crescent Moon Pack itself." The elder's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Indeed, the council will need to convene to discuss the implications of this development." His gaze shifted to the unconscious assassin. "And to address this unfortunate incident." "Unfortunate." Marie's voice cracked like a whip, the awakened power making her words resonate with unexpected authority. "You sent her to kill me. Don't insult us both by pretending otherwise." The elder's ancient eyes locked onto hers, and for the first time since she'd met him, Marie saw something that might have been respect flicker across his expression. "Bold accusations, young queen. Do you have proof?" Marie held up the protection pendant, its surface still warm from the warning it had given. This heated when the assassin approached with killing intent. "And I suspect if you search her belongings, you'll find evidence of who hired her. Professional assassins keep records, insurance against their employers betraying them." It was a gamble. Marie had no idea if Cain Devereux actually kept such records. But the flash of panic that crossed the elder's face told her she'd struck truth. "Take her into custody," Peter commanded the escorts. "Strip search, confiscate everything she's carrying. And if anyone attempts to interfere with the evidence," his golden eyes swept the small gathering, "I'll consider it a declaration of war against the throne." The escorts moved quickly, binding the still unconscious assassin with silver chains and dragging her from the grove. The elder watched them go, his expression unreadable, before turning back to Marie and Peter. The Ascension ceremony will proceed as scheduled, he announced. Tomorrow night, Marie Morgan will be formally recognized as queen. The council has no grounds to object given. He gestured at the still faintly glowing altar stones. The spirit's obvious approval. How gracious of you, Peter said with barely concealed contempt. The elder's smile was thin as a knife blade. Understand something, Alpha King. You've won this battle. The spirits have spoken, and tradition demands we honor their judgment. But you've also created a dangerous precedent. If Omega Wolves can awaken ancient power, if the old bloodline restrictions are meaningless, he leaned forward, then what's to stop every wolf in the territories from challenging the hierarchy? What's to stop chaos? Perhaps chaos is what this pack needs, Marie said quietly. Perhaps 3 centuries of rigid hierarchy has made you forget that strength comes in many forms, not just bloodline purity. The words hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. The elder stared at her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound, but genuine. You're going to be trouble, young queen. I can see that already. He turned to leave, then paused. But trouble has its uses. We'll see if you're the kind that strengthens the pack, his ancient eyes glittered, or the kind that destroys it. After he left, Marie sagged against the altar, her legs suddenly weak. The awakened power was draining away, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Peter was there immediately, supporting her weight, the mating bond flooding with concern. I've got you, he murmured. You were incredible. Terrifying and incredible. I don't understand what happened, Marie admitted. The moment I touched the altar, it was like something inside me, unlocked. Power I didn't know I had, rushing through every cell. The old magic recognizes true worthiness, Peter explained, guiding her toward the path back to his residence. It doesn't care about rank or bloodline. It cares about strength of spirit, about courage, about the willingness to sacrifice for something greater than yourself. His arm tightened around her waist. You have all of that in abundance. The spirits simply made it visible. They walked in silence for a while, both processing what had occurred. Marie's mind was racing with questions. If she had this power, did other Omega Wolves? Had the council been suppressing knowledge of the awakening ritual to maintain their control? How many wolves had gone their entire lives never knowing their true potential? Peter, she said as they approached the residence. What if the elder is right? What if this does cause chaos? Then we'll manage it. His voice was firm. Change is always chaotic at first. But the alternative, maintaining a system built on lies and suppression, that's worse. That's the path to stagnation and eventual collapse. They entered the residence to find it filled with wolves. Not the council escorts or guards, but younger wolves, many of whom Marie recognized from the combat arena. They'd been waiting, and when Marie appeared, they erupted in cheers. The spirits chose her. The Omega Queen. Power awakened. Word had spread with impossible speed. Of course it had. This was the most significant event to occur in pack politics in 2 centuries. Every wolf in the territory would know by dawn. One young wolf, the same one who'd tried to help Marie escape from the cells, pushed through the crowd. Queen Marie, there are dozens of us who want to attempt the awakening ritual. If the spirits can unlock power in you, maybe they can unlock it in others. We could. No. Peter's alpha command cut through the enthusiasm like a blade. The ritual is dangerous. Marie survived because she's exceptional, and because she was already in mortal danger. I won't risk wolves throwing themselves at the altar just to chase power. Disappointment rippled through the gathered wolves, but Peter's authority was absolute. They began to disperse, still murmuring excitedly about what they'd witnessed. When the last of them left, Marie turned to Peter. They have a point. If the awakening is possible for others, then we'll research it carefully, establish protocols, ensure it's done safely. Peter's expression was troubled. But not yet. Not while the council is looking for any excuse to undermine your position. Let's get through your ascension ceremony first. Then we can think about revolutionizing pack hierarchy. He was right, even if it felt like crushing hope. Marie nodded, allowing Peter to guide her to the bedroom. She was asleep within minutes of her head hitting the pillow, the mating bond wrapped around her like a security blanket. The evidence. Marie woke to Peter's absence and immediate alarm through the mating bond. She was on her feet instantly, following the pull of their connection to Peter's study, where she found him hunched over a desk covered in papers and small objects. What's wrong? She demanded. Peter looked up, his golden eyes dark with fury. Cain Devereux did keep records. Very detailed records. He gestured at the papers. Names, dates, payments. And the wolf who hired her wasn't the head elder. Marie's stomach dropped. Who? Counselor Thomas Brennan, the elder's second in command. Peter's hands clenched. But here's the twist. Brennan was acting on behalf of a larger faction. Not just council members. High-ranking wolves from 3 other territories, all coordinating to remove me and install a more cooperative Alpha King. This was worse than Marie had imagined. Not a simple power grab within the Crescent Moon Pack, but a conspiracy spanning multiple territories. If Peter moved against Brennan, he'd be declaring war on forces far beyond his borders. What are you going to do? Marie asked. Peter's smile was predatory. I'm going to use this. Brennan and his co-conspirators wanted to remove me because I refused to expand territories through conquest. They see my restraint as weakness. But now I have proof of their treason and leverage over the other territories who were stupid enough to put their conspiracy in writing. He stood, gathering the papers into a folder. Your ascension ceremony is tonight. I'm going to attend the council meeting beforehand and present this evidence. Give them a choice. Publicly support your ascension and renounce this conspiracy, or face immediate execution for treason. That's a massive risk, Marie protested. If even half the council is involved, then I'll execute half the council. Peter's voice was ice. I've been too lenient, too willing to tolerate dissent for the sake of unity. But they've crossed a line. They tried to kill my mate. There are no second chances for that. Marie wanted to argue, wanted to find a less violent solution. But she could see the calculation in Peter's eyes. This wasn't rage, it was strategy. He was using the assassination attempt to purge the council of its most dangerous elements, consolidating power in a way that would have been impossible before. The attempted murder of a future queen gave him moral and legal authority to act decisively. Just promise me you'll be careful, Marie said. Peter crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. I promise. But Marie, he pulled back enough to meet her eyes. If this goes wrong, if the conspiracy is deeper than I think and they manage to kill me, you need to run. Don't try to avenge me. Don't stay and fight. Just disappear into the wilderness and survive. I won't abandon you. You will if I command it as your Alpha King and mate. His voice softened. Please, Marie. I need to know that if the worst happens, you'll at least have a chance. The mating bond trembled with his fear, not for himself but for her. Marie wanted to refuse, wanted to promise she'd fight beside him until the end. But she recognized the plea in his eyes. I'll run, she whispered. But only if there's no other option. Only if you're already gone and my death would be meaningless. That's all I ask. They held each other for a long moment, both aware that the next few hours would determine their future. Whether they got to build a life together or became cautionary tale whispered around pack fires. Finally, Peter pulled away. I need to prepare for the council meeting. You should rest, gather your strength for the ceremony tonight. I'm coming with you to the meeting. Peter started to protest, but Marie cut him off. They tried to kill me, Peter. I have a right to face them, to hear their justifications, to watch you tear their conspiracy apart. Don't ask me to hide while you fight this battle. He studied her face, then slowly nodded. Together, then. The council meeting. The council chambers felt different this time. The air was thick with tension, every wolf present aware that something significant was about to occur. The 11 council members sat in their designated chairs, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Counselor Brennan was noticeably pale, his eyes darting between Peter and the folder in the Alpha King's hands. He knew what was coming. Peter didn't bother with pleasantries. He simply opened the folder and began reading. Counselor Thomas Brennan. On the date of February 3rd, you paid Cain Devereux of the Shadow Syndicate $50,000 to assassinate Marie Morgan during the Sacred Grove ritual. The payment came from an account funded by Alpha Raymond Cross of the Eastern Territories, Alpha Catherine Vale of the Southern Reach, and Elder Simon Graves of the Coastal Packs. Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. Peter continued, his voice cutting through the noise. These external alphas were promised territorial concessions in exchange for their support in removing me from the throne. The plan was to kill Marie, claim the pack spirits rejected her, use that rejection as evidence that our mating was unlawful, and challenge my right to rule based on my poor judgment. He pulled out a series of photographs, evidence of meetings between Brennan and the external alphas, bank transfers, written communications outlining the conspiracy. This isn't about pack law or tradition, Peter said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. This is about ambitious wolves trying to manipulate sacred rituals for political gain. This is about external forces attempting to control the Crescent Moon Pack through assassination and conspiracy. He turned to Brennan, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. Do you deny these charges? Brennan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, he said, I did what was necessary to protect the pack from your recklessness. Mating with an Omega threatens everything our ancestors built. The pack spirits themselves approved the mating. Peter's roar shook the chamber. Ancient magic awoke in response to Marie's presence at the altar. Are you claiming to know better than the spirits who've guided our pack for 3 centuries? Silence. Peter's golden eyes swept the remaining council members. Anyone else involved in this conspiracy has one chance to confess. Now, because when I start investigating, when I tear through your finances and communications looking for additional traitors, I will not be merciful to those who stayed silent. 3 council members stood, their faces etched with shame and fear. One was a female beta Marie vaguely recognized, another was an older male who'd been on the council for decades, and the third was surprisingly young, barely 30, clearly someone Brennan had recruited recently. We didn't know about the assassination, the female beta said quickly. We were told the plan was political pressure, forcing Peter to choose between the throne and his mate. We never agreed to murder. But you agreed to conspiracy, Peter said coldly. You agreed to work with external forces against your own Alpha King. That alone is treason. What's our punishment? The older male asked quietly. Peter was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, exile. You have 48 hours to leave the territory. You may take whatever personal possessions you can carry, but all property and assets are forfeit. If you're found within Crescent Moon borders after the deadline, his eyes glowed with alpha power. You'll be executed on sight. It was harsh but not fatal. The 3 conspirators sagged with relief even as they nodded acceptance. They'd expected death. Exile was mercy. Brennan, however, received no such leniency. You coordinated the assassination attempt, Peter said, moving to stand directly in front of the counselor. You put payment in writing, created a paper trail that could have exposed the entire pack to external manipulation. Your arrogance and ambition nearly destroyed everything. I did it for the pack. You did it for power. Peter's control finally snapped. You've spent decades in the Elder's shadow, waiting for your chance to lead. You saw my mating with Marie as an opportunity, a way to remove me and step into the vacuum. But you were too stupid to cover your tracks, too confident that your plan couldn't fail. He turned to the head elder, who'd been watching the proceedings with an expression Marie couldn't decipher. Elder, the law is clear on the punishment for conspiring to assassinate a queen. What is your judgment? The head elder stood slowly, his ancient bones creaking. He looked at Brennan for a long moment, and Marie saw something like disappointment flicker across his face. Death, the elder said quietly. By combat or execution, at the Alpha King's discretion. Brennan lunged from his chair, shifting mid-leap into his wolf form, jaws aimed for Peter's throat in a desperate last attack. But Peter had been expecting it. He shifted faster, meeting Brennan's attack with brutal efficiency. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. Brennan was strong, experienced, dangerous, but he wasn't an Alpha King. He wasn't 3 centuries of dominant bloodline compressed into one body. Peter's jaws found Brennan's spine and crushed it. The counselor's wolf form collapsed, shifting back to human as death claimed him. His body lay in the center of the chamber, blood pooling on ancient stone, a stark reminder of the price of treason. Remove him, Peter commanded, and send word to the external alphas who funded this conspiracy. Tell them that any future interference in Crescent Moon Pack affairs will be considered an act of war. Tell them I have all their communications, all their payment records, and I won't hesitate to expose their involvement to their own councils. It was a threat wrapped in a peace offering. Peter was giving them a chance to back down, to pretend this never happened. But the underlying message was clear. Cross him again, and he'd destroy them politically and possibly physically. The head elder inclined his head. It will be done, Alpha King. He paused. And the ascension ceremony tonight will proceed as planned, Peter said firmly. Maria's been tested, approved by the pack spirits, and nearly martyred by wolves too cowardly to face her directly. I'd say she's more than earned the title of queen. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the remaining council members. The conspiracy had been exposed and purged. Peter's position was stronger than ever. And Marie? Marie stood beside the Alpha King, the awakened power still humming quietly in her bones, and realized she'd survived another impossible test. The question was, how many more tests would the universe throw at them before they could finally just live? The Ascension Ceremony. That evening, Marie stood in the formal ceremonial chamber, wearing robes of deep crimson, the traditional color of crescent moon queens. The fabric was heavy with embroidered wolves and pack symbols, each stitch representing a different aspect of leadership and sacrifice. Peter stood beside her in his own ceremonial attire, looking every inch the powerful Alpha King. But through the mating bond, Marie felt his nervousness, his desperate hope that this final ritual would pass without incident. The chamber was packed with wolves from across the territory. Word of the conspiracy's exposure had spread, and everyone wanted to witness Marie's formal ascension. Partly out of genuine support, partly out of morbid curiosity to see if anything else would go catastrophically wrong. The head elder stepped forward, ancient ceremonial staff in hand. Despite his involvement in the political maneuvering, he was still the pack's spiritual leader, the one responsible for conducting official rituals. "We gather tonight," he intoned, his voice carrying through the chamber, "to witness the ascension of Marie Morgan to the position of queen. She has been tested by combat, by conspiracy, and by the pack spirits themselves. Each test she has passed with courage and strength." He turned to Marie. "Do you, Marie Morgan, accept the responsibilities of queen? To serve this pack, to protect its wolves, to lead with wisdom and strength even when the path is difficult?" Marie took a deep breath. "I do. Do you swear to honor the mating bond with your Alpha King, to stand beside him in times of peace and war, to be his partner in all things?" "I swear it." The elder produced a silver circlet, simple, elegant, marked with the crescent moon symbol. "Then by the authority vested in me as elder of this pack, by the approval of the pack spirits, and by the will of your mate and king." He placed the circlet on Marie's head. "I name you queen of the crescent moon pack. May your reign be long and prosperous." The chamber erupted in howls, the traditional pack acknowledgement of a new queen. The sound was deafening, primal, and strangely moving. Marie felt tears prick her eyes as the reality settled over her. She was queen, officially, legally, spiritually. No one could challenge her position now without challenging the entire pack hierarchy. Peter pulled her into his arms, his kiss fierce and possessive and full of relief. Through the mating bond, Marie felt his joy, his pride, his overwhelming love. When they finally broke apart, the head elder stepped forward again. "There is one more tradition," he said quietly, for their ears only. "A private ritual, known only to the Alpha bloodline and their mates." Peter's expression shifted to surprise. "I thought that tradition died out generations ago." "It did. But given the extraordinary circumstances of your mating, I believe it should be revived." The elder's ancient eyes held something Marie couldn't quite identify. "Follow me." He led them from the main chamber through a series of corridors Marie had never seen, going deeper into the mountain than she'd known was possible. Finally, they arrived at a small cave, its walls covered in paintings that looked thousands of years old. "This is the Origin Cave," the elder explained, "where the first Alpha and his mate made their bond 3 millennia ago. The paintings tell the story of how our pack began, not with bloodline purity or rigid hierarchy, but with 2 wolves who found each other against all odds and built something lasting." He gestured at one particular painting. It showed 2 wolves, one massive and clearly alpha, one smaller and obviously lower ranking. But they were depicted as equals, their forms intertwined, power flowing between them. "The first Alpha King mated with an Omega wolf," the elder said quietly. "Just like you, Peter. The council's obsession with bloodline purity came later, after generations of political maneuvering. But the original bond, the one that founded our pack, was between wolves of vastly different ranks who loved each other anyway." Marie stared at the painting, shock rendering her speechless. Why isn't this common knowledge? Because knowledge is power, and the council has spent centuries controlling which knowledge wolves have access to. The elder's expression was troubled. "I've participated in that suppression, believed it was necessary to maintain stability. But watching you two, seeing the pack spirits themselves approve your bond, I realize we may have been wrong." He turned to Peter. "The private ritual is simple. You and Marie will add your own painting to these walls, marking your bond as part of the pack's ongoing story. Future generations will see it and know that true strength comes not from bloodline, but from the courage to love despite the obstacles." Peter's hand found Marie's, their fingers intertwining. We'd be honored. The elder provided paints made from crushed minerals and herbs, the same materials used for the ancient paintings. Then he left, giving them privacy to create their addition to the pack's history. Marie and Peter worked in comfortable silence, their hands moving across the cave wall, creating an image of two wolves. One massive with golden eyes, one smaller with storm-gray eyes, intertwined beneath a full moon. Around them, they painted the symbols of the tests they'd survived. Silver arrows for the assassination attempt, a glowing altar for the awakening, scales for the political machinations. When they finished, they stepped back to admire their work. It wasn't as refined as the ancient paintings, but it was theirs, a permanent record of their impossible love story. Do you think we'll actually get peace now? Marie asked quietly. Or is this just the eye of the storm before the next disaster? Peter pulled her close, his chin resting on top of her head. I think we'll have challenges. The external alphas won't forget their humiliation easily. The council will continue to test our authority in subtle ways. And there will be wolves who resent the changes we're bringing to pack hierarchy. That's not exactly reassuring. But, he turned her to face him, golden eyes serious. We'll face those challenges together. Not as Alpha King and Omega Wolf, but as equals. As partners. As mates who've already survived assassination attempts and political conspiracies. He kissed her forehead gently. The hard part is over, Marie. We've proven our bond is unbreakable. Now we get to actually build a life together. Marie wanted to believe him, wanted to think the universe was done testing them. But a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that their trials were far from over. She silenced that voice and focused on the present, on Peter's arms around her, on the mating bond singing between them, on the painting they'd created that would outlive them both. For tonight, at least, they could pretend they'd won. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tomorrow was still hours away. 3 weeks passed in relative peace, and Marie began to believe that perhaps Peter had been right, that the hard part was truly over. She settled into her role as queen, attending council meetings, mediating disputes between pack members, and slowly learning the intricate dance of pack politics. The awakened power remained, a constant hum beneath her skin. She discovered she could now sense wolves approaching from over a mile away, could move through the territory completely undetected when she chose, and most impressively, could share this stealth ability with others through physical contact. It made her an invaluable asset for border patrols and reconnaissance missions. But it also made her dangerous. And dangerous wolves attracted dangerous attention. The warning came on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a bedraggled messenger wolf who'd run through the night to reach them. Peter was in a council meeting when the wolf arrived, so Marie received him in the residence's main hall. Queen Marie, the messenger gasped, his flanks heaving. Message from the Western Territories. Alpha Raymond Cross is coming. With an army. Marie's blood turned to ice. Raymond Cross, one of the external alphas who'd funded the assassination conspiracy. The one who'd lost the most money when Brennan failed. How many wolves? She demanded. 200. Maybe more. The messenger's eyes were wide with fear. They're 3 days away, moving fast. Cross is claiming. He swallowed hard. He's claiming you murdered Counselor Brennan unlawfully, that you've corrupted the Alpha King with dark magic, and that he's coming to liberate the Crescent Moon Pack from your influence. It was brilliant propaganda. Twisted the truth just enough to give Cross moral justification for invasion, while painting Marie as the villain. And 200 wolves was a massive force. More than enough to overwhelm the Crescent Moon Pack's defenses if they caught them unprepared. Get to the council chambers, Marie commanded. Tell Peter immediately. And send runners to every pack family in the territory. I want full mobilization within the hour. The messenger nodded and sprinted off. Marie stood frozen for a moment, her mind racing. This was what the small voice had warned her about, the storm after the calm. Cross was coming to finish what the assassination had failed to accomplish. But this time, Marie wasn't a helpless target. She was a queen with awakened power and a mate who'd burn the world to protect her. She moved quickly to the armory, selecting weapons with ruthless efficiency. Silver was too dangerous to use against other wolves. It would poison friend and foe alike. But steel would work. Steel coated in wolfsbane oil to slow healing. Steel sharp enough to end fights quickly. Peter found her there 10 minutes later, his expression grim. You heard. I sent the mobilization order. Was I wrong? No. You did exactly right. He pulled her into a brief, fierce embrace. Cross is declaring war. The council is divided on how to respond. Some want to negotiate, Others want to meet him in open combat, and a few are suggesting we surrender you to avoid bloodshed. Absolutely not, Marie said immediately. That's what I told them. Peter's smile was sharp, colorfully, with threats of execution for anyone who suggested it again. He sobered. But Marie, 200 wolves is a serious force. Our pack has maybe 150 combat-ready wolves, and not all of them are experienced fighters. If this comes to open war, then we don't fight them openly. Marie's mind was working furiously, tactical instincts she didn't know she possessed clicking into place. Cross expects a traditional challenge. Armies meeting on open ground, alpha dominance deciding the outcome. We give him something different. She moved to the strategy table, pulling out a map of the territory. The Western Territory's force has to come through the narrow pass to reach our main settlement. It's the only route that can accommodate their numbers. What if we don't meet them there? What if we let them enter, then use guerrilla tactics, hit their supply lines, attack their scouts, make them fight on our terms in terrain we know intimately? Peter studied the map, his tactical mind engaging. It's risky. If they reach the settlement before we've worn them down sufficiently, then we evacuate the non-combatants beforehand. Send them to the northern shelters, the ones built into the mountain. Cross can occupy an empty settlement while we bleed his army dry in the forests. It was a complete reversal of traditional pack warfare, which favored direct confrontation and alpha dominance. But Marie wasn't a traditional wolf, and neither was their situation. Peter's eyes met hers, and through the mating bond, she felt his decision form. We do it your way. I'll sell it to the council, get buy-in from the senior warriors. You, he paused. You'll lead the guerrilla units. Your stealth ability makes you perfect for it, and the younger wolves already see you as someone who breaks rules successfully. Are you sure? Marie asked, putting a queen on the front lines. You're not just a queen. You're my mate, a wolf the pack spirits chose, and the most tactically creative mind I've seen in decades. Peter's hand cupped her face. Lead them, Marie. Show Cross and every other alpha watching that the Crescent Moon pack doesn't break easily. Preparation. The next 72 hours were controlled chaos. Marie organized the evacuation of non-combatants, elderly wolves, children, pregnant females, anyone who couldn't fight effectively. They moved under cover of darkness to the northern shelters, ancient caves reinforced over centuries to serve as emergency refuges. Meanwhile, Peter drilled the combat-ready wolves on the new tactics. Traditional pack fighting emphasized strength and direct confrontation. Marie's approach required stealth, patience, and the willingness to strike from shadows rather than face enemies openly. Many of the older wolves struggled with the concept. But the younger ones, the ones who'd watched Marie survive assassination attempts and political conspiracies through cleverness rather than brute strength, they adapted quickly. Marie personally trained 3 teams of 10 wolves each, teaching them to suppress their scent, move silently, coordinate attacks through subtle signals rather than howls. She shared her awakened stealth ability freely, discovering that while others couldn't maintain it permanently like she could, they could hold it for several minutes at a time, long enough to approach unseen and strike devastatingly. On the second night, Vivian Cross appeared at the residence, her expression haunted. "My father is leading the army against you," she said without preamble. "I thought you should know what you're facing. Raymond Cross is not a good man, but he's a brilliant tactician. He's won 17 territorial conflicts through a combination of overwhelming force and psychological warfare." "Why tell us this?" Peter asked. "He's your father. He's a monster who killed my mate and then told me it was for my own good." Vivian's voice was flat, emotionless. "I have no loyalty to him, but I do have intelligence about his army composition, his typical battle strategies, and his weaknesses." She spent the next hour detailing everything she knew. Cross preferred frontal assaults with elite shock troops leading the charge. He used fear tactics, public executions of captured enemies, displays of overwhelming force designed to break morale before the real fighting began. And he had a particular vulnerability, arrogance. He'd won so many conflicts that he'd stopped considering the possibility of losing. "He expects you to meet him at the narrow pass," Vivian concluded. "He's planned his entire approach around that confrontation, where to position his strongest fighters, how to use the terrain to funnel your forces into a kill zone. If you're not there, his entire strategy collapses," Marie finished. "He'll have to adapt on the fly, in unfamiliar territory, against an enemy using tactics he's never encountered." Vivian nodded. "Exactly. But be warned, When Cross gets frustrated, he gets brutal. If the guerrilla tactics work too well, if his soldiers start dying in ways he can't counter, he'll escalate. He'll start killing prisoners, burning territory, doing everything possible to draw you into the direct confrontation he wants. Then we'll have to make sure he doesn't capture any prisoners, Peter said grimly. On the third day, scouts reported that Cross's army had entered the territory and was moving toward the narrow pass. 237 wolves in total, organized into military units with clear command structure. They were confident, moving openly, making no attempt at stealth. Why would they? They outnumbered the Crescent Moon Pack's fighters by nearly 2-1. This should be a simple conquest. Marie stood on the ridge overlooking the narrow pass, watching the enemy army funnel through the tight canyon. Beside her, Peter radiated controlled fury, his wolf barely contained beneath his skin. "They have no idea what's coming," he murmured. "Good," Marie replied. "Let's keep it that way." The first strike. Cross's army made camp in the valley beyond the narrow pass, still half a day's march from the main settlement. They set up with military precision, command tents in the center, sentries posted at regular intervals, supply wagons arranged for easy access. It was textbook strategy, and it was full of exploitable weaknesses. Marie's guerrilla team struck at midnight. Team 1 hit the supply wagons, slashing open bags of dried meat and grain, contaminating water barrels with wolfsbane that would make anyone who drank from them violently ill. They were in and out in under 3 minutes, completely undetected. Team 2 targeted the sentries, taking down 6 of them in coordinated silent attacks before melting back into the forest. The bodies weren't discovered until dawn. Team 3, led by Marie herself, infiltrated the command area and stole strategic documents, maps, and communications equipment. They left behind a single silver arrow embedded in Cross's command tent, a message that his impenetrable defenses were anything but. When Cross discovered the damage at dawn, his roar of fury echoed across the valley. Marie watched from a hidden position half a mile away, using her enhanced senses to observe the chaos. Cross was a massive wolf, easily Peter's size, with fur the color of old blood and eyes like chips of amber. He was magnificent and terrifying, and he was absolutely livid. "Find them," he bellowed at his second-in-command. "I want scouts in the forest, trackers on every trail. Someone is out there, and I want their heads on pikes by nightfall." He sent out 50 wolves to hunt for the guerrillas. 43 of them never returned. Marie's teams picked them off in 1s and 2s, using the forest itself as a weapon. Wolves chasing phantoms through unfamiliar territory, separated from their units, exhausted and frustrated. They died quickly, quietly, and the survivors limped back to camp with tales of shadows that moved like smoke and attacks that came from impossible angles. Cross's army went from confident to nervous in a single day. That night, Marie called a meeting of all the guerrilla team leaders. They gathered in a cave system 3 miles from Cross's camp, faces streaked with dirt and blood, eyes bright with the fierce joy of successful hunts. "We've taken down over 60 of their wolves in less than 48 hours, Marie reported. "That's a quarter of their force, achieved with 0 casualties on our side. Cross is rattled, his soldiers are scared, and his supply situation is critical." "What's the next move?" asked the young wolf who'd tried to help Marie escape the cells weeks ago. He'd proven to be an exceptional guerrilla fighter, fast and creative and absolutely fearless. "We escalate," Marie said. "Cross will try to force a confrontation by marching on the settlement tomorrow. He thinks if he can occupy our home, hold it hostage, we'll have to meet him in open combat. We let him take it, it's empty anyway. Then we turn the settlement itself into a trap." She outlined the plan, watching understanding dawn on the assembled faces. It was audacious, brutal, and completely unexpected. It was perfect. The trap. Cross's army reached the main settlement at noon the following day and found it completely deserted. Not a single wolf remained, just empty buildings, cold fire pits, and an eerie silence that made the invaders nervous. Cross ordered his wolves to occupy the settlement, posting guards at every entrance, claiming the Alpha King's residence as his command center. He sent messengers throughout the territory, demanding Peter's surrender, promising mercy if the Crescent Moon Pack submitted immediately. The messengers never delivered their demands. Marie's teams intercepted all of them, sending one back to Cross with a different message. "You're not occupying our territory. You're occupying your grave." That night, the trap was sprung. The settlement had been rigged with dozens of carefully placed hazards. Silver wire stretched at throat height across commonly used paths. Pits dug beneath thin covers, filled with wolfsbane-coated stakes. Buildings whose support structures had been deliberately weakened, ready to collapse at the right impact. But the real weapon was fire. Marie's teams had spent hours preparing accelerants, placing them strategically throughout the settlement's wooden structures. At midnight, they ignited simultaneously, creating a ring of fire that trapped Cross's army in the settlement's center. The chaos was immediate and absolute. Wolves scattered in panic, running directly into the traps Marie had prepared. Some fell into pits, impaled on poison stakes. Others triggered the weakened buildings, tons of wood and stone collapsing on top of them. The smoke made shifting difficult, and those who managed it found themselves just as trapped in wolf form as they'd been in human form. Cross tried to maintain order, his alpha command cutting through the panic. To me, form defensive positions. This is just fire. We can wait it out. He was right, technically. The fire would burn itself out eventually, and wolves could survive smoke inhalation that would kill humans. But Marie wasn't trying to kill them with fire. She was using it to herd them. The flames created a funnel, pushing Cross's disorganized army toward the eastern edge of the settlement, toward the river. It seemed like the logical escape route. Water would protect them from the flames, give them a chance to regroup. It was also where Peter waited with the main Crescent Moon combat force. Cross's wolves stumbled out of the smoke and fired directly into a fully prepared defensive position. Peter's fighters hit them hard, taking advantage of their confusion and exhaustion. What should have been a 2-to-1 advantage for Cross became a slaughter. Marie emerged from the smoke like an avenging spirit, her eyes reflecting firelight, wolfsbane-coated blades in her hands. She moved through Cross's forces like death personified, her awakened power making her impossible to track, impossible to predict. Wolves fell before they even saw her coming. Cross himself fought his way toward her, his massive wolf form barreling through friend and foe alike. He shifted to human as he closed the distance, his amber eyes locked on Marie with murder blazing in their depths. "You," he roared. "You're the Omega bitch who's destroyed everything. I'll kill you myself. Take your head back to my territory as a trophy." "You're welcome to try," Marie replied calmly. Cross lunged, his speed impressive for his size. But Marie had fought an alpha king in training sessions for 3 weeks. She'd learned from the best warrior in pack history. She sidestepped Cross's attack, her blade opening a long cut across his ribs. He howled in pain and rage, spinning to face her again. "Impossible. You're an Omega. You can't." "I'm a queen," Marie corrected. "Chosen by the pack spirits, trained by the Alpha King, and really tired of ambitious alphas thinking they can take what doesn't belong to them." The fight was brutal and brief. Cross had strength and experience. But Marie had something he couldn't counter. The awakened power that made her movements impossible to predict, that let her strike from angles that shouldn't exist, that turned every shadow into a potential attack vector. Peter arrived just as Cross fell to his knees, Marie's blade at his throat. "Do it," Cross spat, blood streaming from multiple wounds. "Kill me. Make yourself feel powerful." "I don't need to kill you to feel powerful," Marie said quietly. "I am powerful. The question is what we do with you now." Peter stood beside her, golden eyes assessing the defeated Alpha. Around them, Cross's army was surrendering in droves, throwing down weapons, begging for mercy. "We could execute him," Peter said. "Justified by his invasion, his conspiracy, his attempt to murder my mate." "Or," Marie prompted, because she could hear the alternative in his voice. "Or we make an example that doesn't require his death." Peter's smile was cold. "Raymond Cross, you led an army into my territory based on lies and ambition. You failed. Your soldiers are captured or dead. Your reputation is destroyed. I could kill you, but that would make you a martyr, give other ambitious alphas an excuse to rally against us." He leaned closer. "Instead, I'm sending you home. Alive. Defeated. With a message for every alpha in every territory. The Crescent Moon Pack is not weak. Our queen is not helpless. And anyone else who tries what you tried will end up exactly where you are now, broken, humiliated, and utterly defeated." The psychological warfare was masterful. Death would have been merciful compared to the shame Cross would endure, returning home with his tail between his legs, his army decimated, his reputation in ruins. "I'll kill you for this," Cross whispered. "Someday, somehow I'll." "No, you won't." Peter's alpha command slammed into Cross with physical force, driving him to the ground. "You'll go home. You'll explain to your pack how you lost 200 wolves to guerrilla tactics and fire. You'll live with that failure every day for the rest of your life. And you'll never, ever threaten my mate again. The command was so powerful that Cross physically couldn't do anything but nod, his will completely overridden by Peter's dominance. They released him an hour later, sending him and the 37 survivors of his army back to the Western Territories. Broken, defeated. A walking warning to anyone else who might consider challenging the Crescent Moon Pack. Aftermath. The cleanup took days. The settlement was heavily damaged but not destroyed. Most of the structures could be rebuilt. The casualties on the Crescent Moon side were remarkably light. 3 dead, 17 wounded, all of them expected to recover. Cross's army had lost nearly 200 wolves. It was the most one-sided victory in pack warfare history. Word spread quickly. Within a week, delegations from neighboring territories started arriving, some offering congratulations, others nervously renegotiating treaties and borders. The Crescent Moon Pack had demonstrated that traditional military strength wasn't the only path to victory, and it terrified every alpha who'd relied on superior numbers to maintain power. Marie found herself giving tactical consultations to other packs, teaching them the guerrilla strategies that had proven so effective. It was strange, being sought out for her expertise rather than dismissed for her rank. But the strangest moment came 2 weeks after the battle, when the head elder requested a private meeting. Marie met him in the Origin Cave, the space where she and Peter had painted their bond. The ancient wolf looked older than ever, his shoulders bowed with the weight of centuries. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "I spent decades believing that bloodline purity and rigid hierarchy were essential to pack survival. I suppressed knowledge, manipulated traditions, and nearly got you killed, all in service of a system I now realize was fundamentally broken." Marie wanted to be angry, wanted to make him suffer for the pain he'd caused. But she saw genuine remorse in his ancient eyes, the kind that came from confronting fundamental errors in long-held beliefs. "Why the change of heart?" she asked. "Because you proved me wrong about everything." The elder gestured at the cave paintings surrounding them. "I'd convinced myself the origin story was just myth, that the first Alpha King couldn't have actually made it an Omega. But watching you and Peter, seeing what you've built together," he shook his head. "You've accomplished more in 2 months than the Council managed in decades. You've revolutionized pack warfare, awakened dormant power, inspired wolves who'd given up hope of ever being more than their rank suggested." He moved to stand before the painting Marie and Peter had created. "This is what our pack was always meant to be. Not a rigid hierarchy where wolves are trapped by birth rank, but a meritocracy where strength and wisdom can come from anywhere. You've reminded us of that truth. So what happens now?" Marie asked. "Does the Council change its laws? Open the awakening ritual to other wolves? Restructure the entire hierarchy?" "Eventually, yes. But not overnight." The elder's expression was troubled. "Change this fundamental will take time, careful planning, and strong leadership. Which is why," he turned to face her fully, "I'm stepping down as head elder, recommending to the Council that you take my place." Marie stared at him, shocked speechless. "I've been queen for less than a month. I'm not qualified to." "You're more qualified than anyone who's held the position in a century," the elder interrupted. "You understand both the old ways and the new possibilities. You have the Alpha King's complete trust and the pack spirit's approval. And most importantly, you have the vision to guide us through the transformation that's coming." He pulled out an ancient staff, its wood worn smooth by generations of hands. "This is the elder's staff, passed down through the bloodline since the pack's founding. I'm offering it to you, Marie Morgan. Will you accept?" Marie's mind raced. This was more power than she'd ever imagined having, more responsibility than seemed possible for a wolf who'd been nobody just 2 months ago. But she thought about the young wolves who'd looked to her for hope, the guerrilla fighters who'd trusted her tactical genius, the change she could implement from a position of real authority. "I accept," she said quietly, "on one condition, that you stay on as advisor. Your experience and knowledge are too valuable to lose, even if your specific beliefs needed updating." The elder smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it reached his eyes. "Agreed." Epilogue 6 months later. Marie stood on the ridge overlooking the rebuilt settlement, watching wolves of every rank work side by side on new construction. The hierarchy still existed, but it was softer now, more flexible. Omega wolves could challenge for higher positions through demonstrated skill rather than just combat. The awakening ritual had been open to volunteers, with proper safety protocols and medical supervision. 37 wolves had successfully awakened dormant power so far. Each one discovered unique abilities: enhanced strength, elemental manipulation, accelerated healing, even limited precognition. The pack was transforming, becoming something unprecedented in wolf history. Peter approached from behind, his arms wrapping around Marie's waist, the mating bond singing contentedly between them. "Satisfied with your revolution?" "Getting there," Marie replied, leaning back against his chest. "Though I suspect the real work is just beginning. Other territories are watching what we're doing, and not all of them are happy about it. Let them watch. Let them be unhappy." Peter's voice was fierce with pride. "We've proven that change is possible, that the old ways aren't the only ways. Any territory that wants to challenge that can answer to the queen who destroyed an invading army with 30 wolves and fire." Marie smiled. Her reputation had grown far beyond the Crescent Moon pack. She was the Phantom Queen, the Omega who became Elder, the wolf who'd revolutionized pack warfare and survived more assassination attempts than seemed statistically possible. She was also just Marie, Peter's mate, a wolf who'd stumbled into destiny by refusing to let a king die without honor. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Choosing me over an easy life? Fighting battles that could have been avoided if you'd just rejected the mating bond?" Peter turned her to face him, golden eyes serious. "Never. Not for a single second. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Marie. You turned my existence from mere survival into actual living. You gave me purpose beyond maintaining power, hope beyond the next challenge to the throne." He kissed her softly. "I'd do it all again, the assassination attempts, the political conspiracies, the war. Every moment of danger and uncertainty was worth it to end up here, with you, building something better than what came before." Through the mating bond, Marie felt the absolute truth of his words. No regret, no doubt, just love, fierce and unbreakable and eternal. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too, my queen." They stood together on the ridge as the sun set over their territory. Two wolves who'd defied every law and tradition to be together, who'd survived impossible odds and come out stronger. The Crescent Moon pack had a new future ahead of it, uncertain, challenging, and full of possibility. And Marie and Peter would face it together, as they'd faced everything else. As mates, as partners, as equals, forever. Final reflection. When you look back on your own life, can you identify a moment when you chose love over safety, when you risked everything for something, or someone, that mattered more than survival? What did that choice cost you, and what did it give you in return? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear about the times you chose courage over comfort. The end. Marie and Peter's forbidden bond survived assassination, war, and a council determined to destroy them. But their story, the Phantom Queen who revolutionized pack warfare and the Alpha King who chose love over tradition, is just one chapter in a world where werewolf politics, ancient magic, and deadly romance collide. If you want more stories like this, where Omegas awaken terrifying power, where mating bonds defy death sentences, where love literally rewrites the laws of nature, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button if Marie's journey from nobody to queen gave you chills. And drop a comment telling me, would you have chosen love over survival or played it safe? Also, tap the video on your screen to dive into another werewolf fantasy where forbidden desire, brutal pack politics, and supernatural destiny merge into something unforgettable. More stories, more battles, more impossible romance. Don't miss what happens next.